into it, man. Let's get into it, man. Well, guess
this
what?
Is part two.
Part two, man. We're back once again. We're back double time, man. My name is Alex Rose. Got my boy here,
Thomas Solano.
Yo, man. No pressure, no diamonds, man. We're back with an amazing guest, man. I'm so excited to have you here, man. Miss Nelly Johnson. How are you?
Oh, I'm feeling really good this morning. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really mean that.
Well, I think the first one went so well, and we got a lot of good feedback on it.
Yeah.
And even if we didn't, I enjoyed the conversation. So, and I know you did as well.
It was fun.
Yeah.
Now we live.
Yeah, we had to do a part two. The B-side.
But a lot of stuff has been happening with you since the last conference. I know a lot of things were like in the works, on the table, but now things are really starting to pan out. So just catch the people up with what's been going on with you. I know you got a show and everything. So just let the people know what's going on now.
Oh, thank you. Well, the show Ask Nelly is now live on streamingmillennialfair.com, and my Instagram page has the link. Ask_Nelly. Have to throw that in there.
Yeah.
And it was really such it's kind of like surreal when you see yourself on TV. Like, it's like trying to just wrap my head around this experience, because it hasn't just been about me. It's been about also working with the team, and I've grown as a person. The Nelly that started the show, even from the very first episode, I saw how nervous and I got tongue-tied, and how it progressed through. There's 8 episodes. Even Sean, the producer, was like, you have really just grown, and it really takes that time to get comfortable with yourself and grow. So it has been, the show is live, so that's what I'm really, really excited, and more of that to come. But Millennial Fair Network is an upcoming network on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Prime, to name a few. But we need support. It's something new. It's in its infancy stage.
Nice. And just to let folks know that are the first time, listening to you, what was the, what was the reason why you started this show? How did it come about?
I think, I know that a lot of people have mixed feelings about law of attraction, but I really feel like I manifested it. I wanted to have a relationship show, and I'm speaking it into existence. I really want to. And then I know I admire women like Oprah, because she was on television for so long. And I think that the content that she really put out there was so valuable. But I want to follow in her steps. She is someone that I look up to, and I want to have a relationship show where we're talking about real stuff. And I even told Sean that sometimes I've had to water myself down, because I'm a believer, and I love God, and I'm a woman of God. And if you know me personally, that I have that. But at the same time, there are a lot of taboo topics that a lot of Christians don't want to talk about. And that is, the church in a way is doing a disservice to its believers. So I really wanted to have a platform where I can talk and kind of have the freedom to do so without being monitored. No, you can't say this word or that word, sex, because you're a believer.
Sheesh.
Man, there's some stuff in the Bible that is pretty sexual and descriptive. You drink her honey, and and stuff like that. So hey, bro, I'm just saying, it's there, and
I love it.
And people were made to reproduce. I think, and and develop good people to walk in a faith and spread the word, and so there's nothing wrong with sex. It's necessary. It's part of the process.
Agreed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that people, when it comes to just certain communities and things like that, or just certain platforms, man, it's just good to have open dialogue and open conversation and put everything on the table. Even if it is in church and stuff like that, because people are human, people have, different sides of themselves. And I think it just makes sense to, have that conversation. So I'm really glad your show is going to be talking about some of that stuff.
I want to share one of the topics that one of the episodes talks about should you ask for an STD report or test before you sleep with them? That was very interesting. And should you have your spouse's or your partner's, passcode? It really generated great conversation. And it opened up a lot of relationship dialogue that we should be having. We should be talking. If we're in a relationship, should I have your code? It opens up. And
Heck nah.
What? Listen, Alex is about to get this water bottle.
Newly married Alex.
No, yeah, exactly. My wife has but she knows, she has access to my entire life. She knows my social security. She knows numbers that I don't know, right? Everything's joint account, yada, yada, yada. But it's funny. I mean, at what point does that happen? Because we were in a relationship for 7 years before I actually asked her to be my wife. First 6 months, I'm not like, hey, here's my password, right? Like, you can trust me, and she could trust me, but I don't know. I think that fear of the trust goes both ways. So it's like, if your girl were to ask you in the first couple of months, like, hey, what's your password? You'd be like, what, you don't trust me? And she's like, oh, well, you don't trust me to have your password? Like, that's usually what it comes down to. Well, if you trusted me, then you wouldn't need to be going through my phone. Well, if you were trustable, then you wouldn't worry about me going through your phone. And it's like, it's just one of those things. It really is that. I think at the beginning stages now, after there's some agreement on, the commitment and stuff, and it's a long-term thing, then like, why not? I had my wife my phone. And honestly, I wanted her to have my password because there's some people that I don't want to respond to. I don't like texting. I'm like, dude, will you just send them a message? If you're a friend, it's coming from me. Just, but I'm just confused, like, on how that conversation went with the password thing.
What it does, it creates just like some boundaries, some personal boundaries. Some people said, no, absolutely not. That's my space. No. And it just makes you wonder, like, for me, as a therapist, it made me wonder, because I kind of see things how you are with your wife, Thomas. Like, what's the problem? Like, if there's an emergency, she has it. Like, I don't really think she goes through it. It's not for that.
Yeah.
Should they have it? It's not so they can go through it necessarily. It's just so that they can have it should there be an emergency.
Yeah. Well, what's funny about that is if there is a fear of them going through it, there's a reason for it. Like, let's just be real, right?
Exactly.
Maybe you're liking, too many of these big booty pages or something, you know what I mean? Or you left something open on your phone that you wouldn't want to see. And so I think there's a fear attached to that. If that's the first initial thought, like, no, you're going to go through it. Like, well, there's something there that you don't want them to see. That's my belief. I honestly don't care because there's nothing on there that she would see that I'm worried about.
Right.
Absolutely. So, that was interesting, though, that STD test thing, though, man. I wonder what people were thinking about that. Like, off the top, like, hey, man, we're going to start having a sexual relationship. Let me pull out this paperwork real fast.
But that's
isn't that interesting?
Yeah. Let me see your card, fool.
Let me see your vax card, man. Come on.
Let me see your vaccination card and STD test results.
Yeah, I need the full panel. That's crazy. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
you guys have to check out the show. It's really interesting.
Oh, yeah, I'm curious.
That's interesting. I'll have to check that out.
What were the two perspectives? What were, like, if you can give us a little bit, what were the perspectives?
The young lady was saying that absolutely, because that's something very intimate to her. And absolutely, she wants to keep herself, and the key word was safe. She wants to keep herself safe, and she would do so by asking you, well, let me make sure that you're clean before we take it there.
Like, man, I forgot to wash my hands
today.
Did
she have her card or her thing readily available for the man to look at as well?
Yeah, she would also. She was saying that it would be fun for us to say, hey, we're gonna have sex. Let's go get checked together. That's that's
fun.
Kind of like,
that's
what I thought. Went a little bit like kill mood, like.
It's like, man, Netflix and chilling or whatever the case is, and all of a sudden it's like, man, we should do? Let's go get checked out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I guess there'd be more of a fear for me if that was just like, hey, dude, every weekend I'm going out and, you know, handling business with somebody different. Like, then there's a real fear there. But I don't know. That's an interesting conversation. But I mean, if she was willing to have her card and be like, look, I'm clean and check off all boxes, then you know, absolutely, it's her prerogative to be able to request that. But that's a weird thing.
How many of y'all is out there dating, man? I just want to see in the comments. But how many is out there dating, man, and pulling that card on, folks? I want to see the numbers on that. That'll be interesting. Please comment on that one. I want to see that.
Well, you know, I heard an interesting take too, and I'd love to hear what Nelly's thought is on it, especially as a woman of God and stuff. And we kind of talked about like it's kind of part of the process, but biblically, you're not supposed to outside of wedlock, right? And so I heard a gentleman talking about like how generations recently, the younger generation specifically, just kind of throw the act of having sex around as just some physical thing. And I think that's part of the problem too with the lack of commitment in relationships, because sex is just like whatever, you know, like now it's like, hey, what's your number? How many you bagged or whatever they say, you know what I mean? Like, and it's like no big deal. And in
multiply by 3.
Yeah. In fact, the more that you've done, right, like the more, you know, credit you have or whatever. And so the fact that it's kind of thrown around, like it's not a big thing. It's just a physical thing. It's just like fun. I think we're ignoring the fact that there's actually emotion attached to that, or at least there should be, right? Like it's an emotional and kind of a spiritual thing. So I'm curious.
I'm gonna take some notes, though.
How that goes. Go
Seriously.
ahead, my
I
guy.
got some things I want to say after this too.
Well, because you know that I'm going to give you what I believe. There is an attack. I think it's an attack on what God made, because God did create sex. He made God, and I've said that to other believers, and that because he minimizes it and takes the value from it, it's so readily available that it's not as valuable, let's say, as it once was. It cheapens it, and because my passion is for women, and I do spiritual coaching, but I do it for both, but women is really where my heart lies. I don't think dating includes sex. Now, if you're courting and you decide to do that with your partner who you're courting means that you and this person have talked about getting married, and that's between you and God. But sex should not be shared, and this is my viewpoint, with just anyone. Not everyone should have access to that realm, per se, even as a man. But for some reason, men feel like, like it's okay for them to do that. But really, no one should have that type of access to you. Like you're valuable. And then I had a woman challenge me. She said, so are you saying that that's the best part of me? Because it isn't. This is the best part. And no, but that is something sacred. For we can't say that it's not sacred, because you know that it is. And everyone shouldn't have access to you like that.
Yeah. Well, again, I think that kind of proves that point that I was trying to make, where this isn't the best part and it's just something. It's not just a thing. Like it shouldn't be. I mean, it should mean something. Now, have there been instances pre-marriage where there was, maybe some alcohol involved and it didn't really mean anything to either one of us? Maybe. I don't know. But, and I would consider that a mistake. But the fact that it's just kind of thrown around, and now there's a measure of manliness attached to how many chicks you've, been with or whatever. I don't know. I think that's a problem, because there's a devaluation of the act of, sharing. It's an intimate thing. It's not just a thing, I don't know how much more to explain on that, but
I have an interesting take on this. So, especially how it is with guys. I'll just be real, like how it is with just most guys.
Yeah.
Generally. Like you said, it's a badge of honor. Or it can be, it's portrayed as a badge of honor, like how many women you can, you can have sex with or sleep with, or the act of doing that with.
Well, it's celebrated too. Yeah,
it's
the
celebrated,
higher your number,
right?
like, oh man, you a stud.
Because and I think, and I've just heard this before, is the value that men and women have from birth, right? So men generally have to build up their value in order to get somebody to want them, like to get a woman to want them, right? So they have to build up their value generally, like, and we were talking about this before the show even came on, like we were talking about what so that it's like, hey, they have to have they got to be this tall,
Right.
they got to be in this type of shape, they have to be generating this type of income, they have to do that. So what happens is when somebody builds their, like, no man's born like that, but he builds his value, builds his health and his fitness and his attributes up to attain a level that makes him very, very, very attractive to a lot of not just her, but a lot of different women want that.
Options.
He has a lot of options, and for a guy, that's generally pretty hard to attain. It's like you start from zero, you have to build yourself up to $1 million, as opposed to I'm not saying all women, but generally a woman already has her $1 million from birth, because many guys are seeking women all the time. Women are just fighting guys off, a woman could put a post up, just in her workout clothes, and all of a sudden it's like they got like 500 likes on their thing or 100 messages, and they're like, dang, like this. But a guy could put a picture in his workout clothes and might literally get like one.
Yeah.
Might get some likes.
Well, then you get some messages too, like, you need to put your shirt back on. Or,
from your boy, for your friends.
Keep them crunches up. Keep them.
So it's like two totally different trains of thinking. So then what guys do is they celebrate that, because it's like, oh, well, he's broken through some type of mold. He built himself up. So then it is celebrated. So then it's just it's a very interesting place that we're in right now. As far as that goes, because it's like, I'm not gonna say happy, I guess a happy medium, like where's the, like how should guys be really thinking, especially if most people want to build themselves to be a success. Mm-hmm. So how should a guy that builds himself of that type of success be thinking about sex and about women and about those things? Like, how should what should it, should he just have way more discernment, know how to filter through a lot better? I'm not sure how somebody would be thinking at that point. Cause that's really interesting. I just had just wanted to kind of bring that up, because
I'll let the professional answer. I have an opinion, but go ahead, Nelly.
No, you know what? I think that you bring up a good point, because I think it's biological too. Can I say the H word?
Yeah, man. Hey, man, it's free reign. Yeah. It's okay. We're good.
So people get horny.
Yeah.
Right. And so, because that's out there, then what do? Right? You just go to your phone and just, right? You're a single guy, right? You've worked out, you ate, you went grocery shopping, everything is done, the house is clean, you've done the laundry, and you're still horny. Now what?
Go work out.
Again. So that's
Make it a leg day.
That's where you have to really find creative ways to either distract yourself. Distraction is one of the, I used to be a substance abuse counselor, where it's included in therapy, and you have to distract yourself from something, and you have to monitor what you're watching. If you're watching a lot of maybe TV that is, that kind of induces those thoughts, you have to really monitor and perhaps read. So get out of that, put on some worship. There you go. Yeah, or just start reading a book. But what happens when you get to that point? And so that's where it's a personal decision what you do with that,
Discipline.
Well, I mean, you mentioned the law of attraction earlier, and so I'm assuming you've read Think and Grow Rich, right? Okay, so in Think and Grow Rich, what do you do with there's a whole chapter on it, and it's called sexual transmutation. So if you decide that at some point you want to be a high caliber, successful person, you can turn that horniness or whatever it is that you want to call into something productive. Yeah. And build yourself and maybe raise your net worth. But I think it was interesting. And actually that what you described, Alex, it exists in nature, right? Like the male peacocks are the attractive and colorful ones, not the female ones. We're like, why is that? because the male's got to dance and they got to flash and they got to do all of that stuff, right? So I think in with human beings, that same kind of display needs to happen, which is kind of what you alluded to, and it's probably the reason why women are like, hey, specifically, here's what I'm looking for. I think the problem is when we're throwing out sex and it's just like not a big deal. I can tell you as a man, those situations where I was able to just hit the club, take a chick home, we both maybe had a couple cocktails, we enjoyed an evening or whatever the case may be, that's not a girl that I'm going to marry. It's just not. There's no value there. There was no challenge, actually. There was nothing that I had to work up to. It was easy. I never wanted that. Again, I married the woman I married because she made me sleep on her couch for months before anything even happened. We wouldn't even really kiss, dude. Like, we would just go out. We'd have good conversation and stuff, maybe a little kiss on the cheek. We'd go back to her place. I'd sleep on the couch. Bro, that was such a challenge to me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, damn, like she made me work for it. And anything worth or of value, you have to work for. The same is true for promotions and all of that. So I don't know why we look at relationships as something different. It's just not. You have to work for it.
Isn't it interesting? I don't know. This is interesting to me because I have family that are women too, and they make some guys work for it and other guys not. Like, I've seen that, like, where one guy
well, the ones they want to work for it aren't. They're not the ones that they're physically attracted to.
That's interesting. Yeah,
that's my opinion. Like,
is that true?
Like, if you have to work for it, it's because you're not a 8 out of 10 or a 9. Like, you're probably a 6, but you're a good guy, so you have some value, but it's not physical value. Because if you had physical value and they're physically attracted to you most of the time, there's not a lot of effort that needs to come in. Now, I could be wrong. Let's hear a woman's perspective.
It's true. If he's super fine, like he is super fine. I mean,
he could be dumb as an ox, and you're still gonna be like, hey, girl, he looks good.
I went out with a trainer one time. We went on a date, and as soon as he opened his mouth, I was like, oh, I'm so uninterested right now. But he was so great to look at. I could just sit there and look at him and eat. But he was... women are, I'm just telling you, women have that. But it's just there was no emotional attraction. I want someone that will challenge me and that can really have a conversation with. And women want that, believe it or not, they do. They might have like your cousin or whoever, that they might engage in sexual activity with that person really fast, but just like he said, it might be just short-lived.
Yeah. I know I want that, and I think the higher the caliber a man is, the more they start to filter out, especially when they're looking for something long term. I think the problem that I have is that when men do it, women say they're sexist and misogynistic and shallow. But I don't know if it's always okay for a man to call a woman that. If women have standards, and we were to say something like that, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but most women would say, we're misogynistic and shallow. But the second a man does it, right? Wait, I've lost my train of thought. When a man has those standards, we're misogynistic and shallow. When a woman has those standards, she knows what she wants, or like it's almost celebrated.
Well, yeah, just like we're a little backwards. But no, you're right to some degree. That's the same reason why. Have you seen all over TikTok and Instagram how being a cougar, that's like super hot. Guys are like,
Oh, like Scottie Pippen's wife, ex-wife, right?
Like everyone. Like I posted this TikTok and I was like, what 40's looking like? And it was like, and my DMs was like 20 something. So, but if it was the other way around, I'm just telling you, if my daughter was 24 and she's dating a vato that's 40, I'm going to have an issue. I'm like, no. So that's just being honest with myself.
Yeah, dang, man, that's a trip, dude. Because how the double standard of it, it is, life is built on a lot of that. There's a lot of things that are double standards, like you said, like the whole, if a guy has a lot of sexual partners, his values seem generally pretty high, and if a woman has a lot of sexual partners, then her perceived value is very low. You know, perceived value. Perceived value. And that depends, you know, obviously people live their life, especially people who are single a long time. But, you know, it is interesting, man, just how the double standards do work. You know, but dang, sheesh,
But I wanted to say
one.
about that being horny. It all comes down to your mental diet. What are you feeding your brain? I can't say this enough because it's really important to monitor what you're listening to and what you're watching on TV and who you hang out with, your friends.
When you say watching on TV, I just want to be pretty blunt. Are you talking like specifically like porn and that kind of stuff? Or are you just talking about like movies? Or
there was a movie, and I can't remember. He's like a Middle Eastern guy. Oh, 365 Days. It's a movie, and it's a lot. There's a lot of sex in that movie, and the only reason why I found out is because my coworker said, I want to get your take on this. And so I was like, what movie is it? It was on Netflix. And I was like, okay, I'll check it out. And it made me feel uncomfortable. It was very graphic. It was too much. I just think that movies like that can induce those thoughts.
Sure.
Naturally. I'm a woman. I'm not dead, you know, so it's going to naturally bring that out. So your mental diet.
So what's the stand on like celibacy? You know, people are just like, I'm not doing this. Like, you know, because I think a lot of mental energy does go into like sexual thoughts. But I just know, especially when I was single, man. Like I was like, shoot, like all right, like you said, I did this, I did that, I got this done, I got this done. I got my boys hitting me up. Are you about to go here? You know, we about to go, and then your eyes. I mean, just especially as a man, it's conquer. You know what I mean? It's conquering. You know, and like you said, a challenge. You said the challenge of the prey, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? So
we're hunters by nature.
You know, just by nature. You know, predatory. Yeah. So it's like, okay, well, how does somebody? You know, so he said reading. I'm trying to think like, all right. So I'm like, all right. So I'm having these feelings, and I'm like, what book should I read? I'm like, all right, okay, well, all right. So reading, the Bible. I don't know. Shoot, I don't know. Maybe having a conversation, music. Dang, but it depends on the kind of music, man.
Yeah, you start listening to what is it, WAP?
Oh my God.
You're in bad business, man. So yeah, I don't know. Celibacy specifically, I don't have an answer for that because I don't think I've ever practiced that. So that'd be hard.
I only had one person.
Have, and I think it's self-discipline. Just like there's people that do intermittent fasting, which is like what I do. So I only eat, let's say, 2 to 9. It's discipline. It's a muscle. You need to develop it.
Yeah, that's a... Thank God I'm married now. But yeah, and so, but dating now. So we're kind of talking about that and filtering through and just the standards of people now. You know, the standards of. I'll talk about both sides. So I'll talk about both sides. So I think social media, has done a little bit of a disservice to this because all we see on social media is the best. There are a lot of what's on the highlight reel of people's life. Everything's filtered through, filtered on, the filters and stuff like that. But you see the best. So now the world has literally become, you know, somebody's backyard. So somebody can, you know, they see somebody and they're like, well, shoot, I don't need to date Joe down the street that has a decent job and does okay for himself. And because there's Richard in Miami that has this lifestyle, and he has the boats and the cars and the things, and hey, you know what? He said he'll fly me out. So guess what, man, Joe? I appreciate you, buddy, but I'm going over here. But that might be short-lived, and while Joe is a perfectly suitable candidate for probably a family and marriage and those type of things, he's an average guy, right? So that a lot of the average guys are kind of getting pushed to the wayside, and then a lot of times even with the guys too, with the women. So a guy could be, all he see on Instagram is baddies, right? All he see on Instagram is like, well, shoot, I'm not going to talk to her if she doesn't have this and this. She doesn't have that BBL or whatever they call those things, man. She ain't been to Colombia, man. If she don't have this type of nose structure and face structure, and if she don't have this, then I'm not going to take her serious, you know? But if they can get that type of woman, first of all. But if so, there's just a huge skew as far as people, as far as in like the dating community. I think, or people that are out there on both sides, and that seems pretty interesting. How could I was trying to formulate a question out of it, but with dating now, how can people feel, be able to do this? I don't know, the right way, or how can they like be able to pick the right guy or the right girl? How are they discerning these types of things without getting too crazy? Or I don't know, I'm trying to figure out the question out of it, but dating's hard now. So how can people do that and find people in their lanes? Possibly, instead of having such huge aspirations, like I need this guy with an 8-pack, or I need this girl with a butt pack. Like I said, an 8-pack on her butt. You know what I'm saying? Like, how can people, like, I don't even know if people, I don't know if there's a way to fix it without deleting your Instagram or something.
I really believe that social media has done us a disservice because I think it's smokescreen. It's not really real. So it's an illusion of other options that are not really there.
Mm-hmm.
So you just gave an example about this guy next door who he could be, he works for waste management. They make great money, right? And so she thinks that she has an option down in Florida with this guy that has a boat. It's an illusion, not real. This guy right here, he's kind, he's generous, he is husband material, but it's an illusion. So we're falling for that smokescreen. It's not really real. You think you have all these options, but as soon as you would see them in person and have a conversation with them, I think you'll be able to know that no, you wouldn't go on a second date or a third date with this guy. So it's not really real. So when I'm teaching someone, if I'm coaching their dating coach, I've done that. I just make sure it's real, because this guy in Florida who's gonna fly you out, not real. You might have you ever talked to him? You might not even be real, and it's not. It's an illusion.
Like catfishing, right? Like where it might be not be real. I think the problem, dude, and it's been a long time since I've dated, like 17 years. Actually, that's not true. I date my wife. Nugget for you fellas.
Date your wife.
However, I think there needs to be a willingness. So I think to answer your question was like, hey, how do people like date and filter out? Like, dating is part of the filtering process. Dating is part of like how you figure things out. The problem is that you're giving it up too quickly while you're dating, and it leaves a sour taste in your mouth, potentially, right? Is what I'm saying. So how do you date and figure it out? You date and you go through the filtering process and you figure out what you like and what you don't like. I mean, I think that was the coolest part of like going through high school and stuff, was like I started to figure out what I liked about girls and the things that I looked for, and then I'd compare that to my mom's best assets, and my mom was strong and independent, and I grew up in a house with both parents, but not really. My dad was gone 9 months out of the year, usually working in another state. So my mom was holding down the fort, 4 kids, baseball, gymnastics, wrestling, like all of this stuff, right? And still working. And I just loved that. So remember what I said I was attracted to about my wife? She was strong. She was independent. She didn't need me. My mom maybe needed my dad. I'm not going to speak for her. But what I seen was her ability to thrive without him. Right. And so that's what attracted me. I figured that stuff out through the dating process. When things were too easy and women were, again, I mean, not that I want a woman who's manly, right? But when they're strong and they're capable and they're confident, that was what was attractive. So I figured that out going through the dating process. I think the problem with social media is the immediate gratification. Like you mentioned earlier, people are just swiping and not actually doing any research. So you're never going to find what you're looking for. First, if you don't know what you're looking for. Secondly, if you don't take the time to look.
Dang, I think a lot of people have no idea what they're looking for.
They don't. And then to have personal boundaries. That's probably step one. Nelly, I'm going to start dating. She's been divorced, like say, a year now. I'm going to start dating. Well, what are your personal boundaries? Some of those personal boundaries means that you're not going to someone's house on date number 1 because he's going to cook for you. No, thanks. I don't feel comfortable with that. That is my favorite sentence, and I teach women. I don't feel comfortable with that. And I know you would understand. I don't feel comfortable going to your house. You could be a serial killer. I don't know you. And I'm just not going to, oh, well, with all this COVID, okay, well, maybe it's just not a good time then. No, there's personal boundaries. So you need to start there.
Yeah. Well, you know what I love about that? And I don't know why, but like the 50s popped into my mind. And I know for a fact that was not something my grandmother was doing, or ladies in the 50s. They weren't just going to some dude's house on date one. Like,
dang,
crap,
date one?
man,
I didn't even hear that part. Date one?
Look, even after they were married, a lot of times they didn't even sleep in the same bed, right? Like, and I don't know, a lot of that I think is kind of extreme, but there was a standard that women had and a value they put on whatever it was that they were bringing to the table. And that's what was attractive to men. The reason why people stayed married for so long, in my opinion, was that, at least for me, the reason why I'm going to be married till I die is I'm attracted to the standard and the values that my wife held from the very beginning and continues to hold today.
Question. So, do you possibly, because you said the 50s, right?
Yeah.
So, I forget what they call it. So, through like the 60s and 70s, when the liberation, kind of like the women's liberation, like
women's
we
movement?
could, like the like women's movement, but also we can do what a guy can do and I can do better, like kind of through there. Now, I think that like there's a lot of great things that came from that, of course, you know what I'm saying, especially in the workplace and the workforce, and women getting a lot more opportunities, especially with employment and work, but also with the women's liberation as far as sexual liberation. Like, we can do what guys can do too. We can have a bunch of different partners. We can do a lot of these different things. We can bring these. So I think what happened was a lot of the things from, like you said, the 50s and before, a lot of the even possibly skill sets, like I don't know many women now, or that I personally know, that like, well, shoot, I might, like back then, like people out there, like they could make stuff from scratch. You know what I'm saying? Like, it could be, like, man, like, especially as white man can cook. I mean, cook, the cooking skills, like their homemaking skills, like a lot of those skills, like either go by the wayside because we just have there's so many. I mean, it's so easy to just get food now, to go out and get food. But I think a lot of the homemaking skills kind of went by, have gone by the wayside, especially with the younger. Especially the younger generation. Like, I only have one of my best friends, his sister basically helped raise them when they were like, it doesn't mean their parents weren't there, but she helped pretty much raise them when they were little kids. Mm-hmm. And she had all the homemaking skill, like just everything. So she got married and she flourishing marriage. But I don't see a lot of, especially the younger generation that's coming up right now, that have a lot of those similar skills. Like I haven't seen, I don't know if it's just me, but I like a lot of cousins and stuff that.
I hear it a lot too. I hear a lot of
like, you don't know how to even do this, or
I don't know how to do that, or I never learned how to cook, or I don't know why that happens. Maybe, I mean, Nelly's a woman. I don't think you fall into that category of like inability, right? But why do you think that is?
I think there's just a breakdown in families. That's just, I see it in the criminal justice system. As you guys know, I was a therapist at a lockdown facility, and there's a breakdown in families. Dad's gone for whatever reason, mom's gone now. So there's really no one at home like there used to be. So now there's both working. Before it was like mom could teach, right? The child, the 14-year-old coming up, how to cook. Now she's working. So there's just a breakdown just in the family unit, just altogether, that has kind of bleeded into other areas, whether it's relationships, even how a person feels about themselves. It all comes down to the family of origin.
And what people value. Because like you were saying, you valued what you seen your mom doing.
What he saw. That's why you were so attracted to her. Because to some level, it reminded you. Remember Freud? He said that, you know, you're attracted to your father, or your little boys would be attracted to their mother. Why? Because it's those same attributes that you were attracted to, that you saw growing up. So it's I think it's just a breakdown in the family.
I also think too, like when you brought up the point of like the women's liberation and stuff like that, and I'm like, again, I'm all for it, like, you know, but I think they lost the value in what it truly means to be a good wife. I think at some point that became like a weak thing, like. The idea of being a wife became like something where you're like submissive in the younger generation's mind, like, oh, a good wife or a good homemaker,
like slavery or something. Like I think it's like some type of form.
Not necessarily slavery, but I think like there's a weakness to attach to that idea, and there's not a value or a real understanding of what that actually entails, man. And my respect for my wife continues to go through the roof because, dude, that is not an easy thing to do. Like, it's just not to do everything or to prove everything that you can. Like, my wife can make money on her own. She's successful. She's educated, right? She can do all of those things. But on top of that, she makes sure we have clean clothes. She makes sure that we're well fed. She makes sure that, you know, the fridge is stocked. She does the shopping. She makes sure the homework gets done. Like, there's so much that goes into it that needs to be celebrated, and obviously that needs to be acknowledged by the husbands and stuff. But it needs to start to be celebrated, I think, again, in our culture, because, and I could be wrong, but a lot of these college students are like, that's a weak thing, right? Like, they want to be in positions of power. Cool, more power to you, but you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't be in a position of power and have a good family. Maybe you can, but you know what I'm saying? Like, in the thought process, you really can't do that.
Yeah, the whole, you know, like the whole I had auntie says too, like, man, I don't need no man. What's the man gonna do for me? And I think that's a especially when they're saying that around the younger generation, when they're saying that around them, like, man, what's the man gonna do for me? I don't need that. I got this, I got this, I got that, I got this. If I can do this by myself, and I'll raise them by myself.
Well, you know what?
Very, very, very.
I don't want to lose this thought, but I had a conversation with somebody that we both know, and I won't say names and stuff, but very kind of strong, right, as a woman in her mind. And that was her thought process. And she was like, well, I don't need a man. I can do this and I can do that. The problem is that you won't get a man with that attitude. Like you won't. You're not going to get me as a man, right? Not that you want me, but you won't get a man of the caliber of me where I'm willing to protect, provide, preside, like, you know what I mean? Like, you're not going to get a man with that type of attitude. Well, I don't need you. Cool. You don't have to worry about ever having me. What you will get is a weak, meek, kind of go with the flow, yes, man. And then, you know, the funny part about that is that's the last thing women want, in my opinion. Like, that's the last thing. You don't want some weak pushover guy. You want a decision maker. Like, that's usually what's attractive. Am I wrong or am I...
No, you're right. But I wanted to comment on the attributes that your wife has. She has those because that's what she values. And to some level, that was modeled for her because she knows that that's important. Some of these women that I've had as clients, they just don't know even how to do what you're talking about. Let's say that there is a woman out there who has the potential to be what your wife is because she sounds amazing. There's this girl maybe who right now she's 27 and she just doesn't even know the how. She's never seen that. She grew up in foster care, group home, here, there. Who's taught her how to cook? Nobody. She doesn't know to pick a man such as Thomas. She lacks the wherewithal to really understand. And that's what I mean, that the core issue, I feel like sometimes in our society, we're taking care of the symptoms, such as when you have a cold, you might have a runny nose, you have a fever and chills. Well, the core issue is that you have the flu. And so let's take care of the flu and not just the symptoms. So I feel like we're playing whack-a-mole. Like we're trying to get rid of the symptoms and never really addressing the core issue.
Dang.
Well, how does that happen? Because you did talk about like the breakdown in the home. and now mom's having to work and stuff and go out and do those things. So did that breakdown start when it was required for a dual income family, like, you know, where both parents had to start working? Is that where that happened? Or
I absolutely believe that it came due to a financial need. Now in California, I can't, I lived in Texas for 5 years, so I was able to stay home while I was in grad school. My ex-husband, he took care of the whole home, but he was in a career that he could. But how about if you're with a husband that maybe can't? So that financial stress is really difficult on the family. So now the wife has to, help in the home.
Something's got to give.
Something's got to give. She doesn't want to see. If your wife sees that you're working 12-hour shifts and you're never home, what is she gonna do? Try to help. And so now she's gone. So in California, like I was, let me finish that sentence. You have to have almost like a 2-income home for to have a home where you can have groceries and not get any assistance from the government.
Sure.
I'm talking just the kids, they pay for their lunch just to have that and have some kind of, weekend fun. 2 parents need to be working, or at least one of them needs to be having maybe a higher level of education or making, 85,000 to above.
At least, shoot, California.
yeah, California's getting kind of crazy. It's fascinating to me, because I totally agree with the need to be financially stable. I maybe I'm going to speak, and the reason is because my appreciation for what my mom was able to do has gone through the roof now through this conversation. But she did it in California with not 1 or 2 kids, with 4 kids, playing extracurricular activities, and she worked a full-time job while my dad was gone in another state. So yes, there was 2 incomes, but she never lacked in any of those areas. Now, were there some times where she had to ask for support? Yeah, during the day when she's at work, my grandmother would watch us. So she had a support system. So I see that there's a breakdown when there's no support system. But I think there's also not a willingness. And I could be wrong. I don't want to sound sexist or anything like that, because I'm not. But I just think that there's not a willingness to do the extra, to like sacrifice. Like there's no willingness for a short-term sacrifice to do whatever has to be done, you know what I mean, and maintain those things, that standard. Like that's why I said, like, women now, it's either or. You can't have a great career and have a family. Like they're like, oh, that's impossible. You got to choose one. I don't think you have to. I think you can do both, but you're going to work your ass off, you know what I mean, to make that happen a lot of the time. Where women in the past were willing to do that. And maybe it's not possible. I don't want to come across as sexist or anything like that, but I just feel like there's a lack of willingness to be able to do that. I don't know. Maybe it's just not something they want. I don't know. But it's a tough. I don't know. It's a tough thing. Yeah.
Well, what I heard, and this is also another, like, one of the most unhappy demographics is women over like 37, 45, or in their 40s with no kids and a great career. Like people that are having income, but the fulfillment of having a family, and having a family unit is so, and I think maybe I could be wrong, but this can be a possibility too. I think men and women derive a different, like as far as like success in career, they might like mentally think it's different for women and men. I believe so. I believe some it's the same. Generally, it could possibly be. Generally, it's different. So I think men, like in a career, probably in the workforce, like them going out and knocking down walls and going out there and having a very successful career and work life and being able to take in doing that is, I think women have I think they take on a different I'm trying to think of the right words to say, but I think men and women in the career world, success wise, it comes a little different, because I think when a woman maybe like they got all the success in the world in career, but then when they have a baby, they're like, I'm putting that off to the side. I got to make sure this babysit. They'd be willing to if they could. Like, hey, look, let me just put that on the back, put my career on the back burner. Let me make sure my baby's doing good. Let me make sure this is doing fine. But I think men have a different thought process when it comes to that, possibly. Like a man, it's like, well, shoot, I just have a baby, I have a family, cool. I gotta go and get it more now. I gotta take this to the next level.
Double down on your efforts.
Double down, you know. So, you know, that's. But that was pretty interesting because I heard, you know, I was listening to something. I heard like, you know, that's a pretty tough demographic to be in. A woman that has no kids and has a successful career, but has no children, and they're getting older. You know, and that's like, that's
for women,
interesting.
you know, after 35, if they become pregnant, it's considered a geriatric pregnancy after 35.
That's so crazy to me.
Because, you know, it's biologically, the doctors would have you become pregnant before 35.
Sure.
I chose to only have 2 kids because after my second son, I wanted to, and I got help from welfare when I had who is now a 16-year-old. And I never wanted to be in a place where I couldn't stay home again. Mm-hmm. If I ever had another child, I said to myself, he needs to make enough to where I'm going to stay home and I'm going to be there for the baby, because there's no way that I'm going to give my child to daycare 8 hours a day so that someone else is raising my baby. So at that point, who cares what I wanted? I was going to make sure that, you know, and I did it. And people are surprised because you know that I'm very independent and I like to do things on my own, but I can also respect that you're the husband and you're a provider right now so that I can take care of home. That means that you don't want to come home and there's nothing to eat. Well, you know, I believe that. I believe that I should be. Why? Because you're my husband, because I love you, because I want to make things easier for you. You know, so the want comes down to what I value. That's why I never got pregnant again. I'm not going to have a baby and then the baby's in daycare and I'm taking care of someone else's kid or doing whatever. Nothing was going to be more important than my child.
Yeah, it's so. I love that you said that, because again, I refer back to the women in my family, like my grandmother, who I lost not too long ago. But
sorry.
No, that's okay. She just laid down a good, solid foundation of how to act as a woman. Yeah. All of my tias, you know what I mean, and all the women in our family, my cousin even, but my cousin can be at a family get together, you know, and my wife takes care of me, so there's no need for her to. But if she's grabbing food, she'll say, "Hey, primo, like, do you want me to grab you something? Absolutely. Can I serve you a plate?" You know what I mean, and stuff like that. But that was just the examples that we've seen, and that may be a cultural thing too, because I'm pretty sure it's the same.
Yeah. My mom, I didn't. You know, we were just real quick. My boyfriend was next to me, and I was like, "Are you hungry?" And she understands enough English, but she still talk like this. Mm-hmm. And she's like, "Nelly, hazle un plato. Like, go make him a plate, do it, you know." Yeah. Look, I better make a plate for my mom yells at me, you know. So he's like, "Love you, Ma," you know. So it does happen. That's what I mean. Like, were you taught that? What were you taught? And because that is what I was exposed to, like, that's important. But let's say I didn't have a mom like that. Yeah. Then what?
Yeah, see, that's the thing. It's exposure.
How about if she would have said, no, let him grab his own plate. Why should you do it?
But see, that's the problem I have with the again, I'm not, like, I love opportunity for women, so I'm not like anti-feminism, but there's this crazy wave right now of like women that are that way, like, no, he can do it himself. Or I've held a door open for a woman before and she was like, "No, you can go ahead, I can get my own door." I'm like, all right, cool. So do you want chivalry? Do you not? Bye. Do you like...
Girl, exactly. Bye. Please open the door for me.
Slam it up. Nah, I didn't do that. But you see what I'm saying? Like, I feel like there's too much of like trying to prove something. Like, why don't we let people play their roles? And it happens to me sometimes where it actually happened recently where I was in a seat and I didn't realize immediately, but I grabbed the last seat and there was a lady that was standing. So I stood up. I'm like, "Hey, you can have the seat." She's like, "No, I'm fine." I said, "Okay, well, so am I." And I stayed standing. She's like, "You're really not going to sit unless you're not going to sit back down. I'm like, no, like the seat is for you. And she's like, oh my God, okay. And I'll have a seat. I won't get in my car before my wife is in the car. We're walking to the car, right? My sons now, they're so good. They'll open the door for her on that side. She wants to make sure they get in first, so they'll get in the car. But I'm waiting for her to get in the car and close that door. Her safety matters, so I don't get in the car before that, right? And I can appreciate that. I appreciate that my wife allows me to be a man. She'll slip me the card at the restaurant if I forgot my wallet, or slip me the cash so that I can pay, and that the waiter sees me be the one that pays.
Bank account,
exactly, yeah. But she's, you know what I mean? And as a man, that's what I'm looking for. I'm not, and the word submissive seems extreme, but kind of, like, I want to be able to play that role of protector and provider and presider and stuff. And
there's a lot of power in there's a lot of power that comes with allowing yourself as a woman to be submissive to somebody that's worthy of being submissive to, by the way.
That's key. What you just said right there is key.
Drop the mic.
You drop the mic drop on that.
All right, we're done here. Hey, just so y'all know, we're out of here. We're
That's it. If you find a menso that you're submitting yourself to, then that's the problem.
Exactly.
But the other thing I wanted to talk about as you bring that is that there's a lot of women that have masculine energy. And the reason, and this is what I wanted to give it a title to this woman that you're kind of describing, well, I'll get it myself. And no, you better get it. I think that sometimes we as women have been single for a long time and haven't found someone that's worthy of what we can provide, that we unconsciously acquire this masculine energy, and we become super independent to the point that it's like the wind, to the point that it becomes like a fault. Like, we really need to, it's okay to be vulnerable. And that's where it really happens, because it takes vulnerability to say, I'm going to submit myself to you. But the Bible talks about that. And that's like a conversation that has triggered a lot of dialogue, because what does it really mean to submit to a man? What does your wife really do? If she was here, well, what exactly do you do to submit? And I had a woman, she was, I was making her mad, but I wasn't really trying to. I was just telling her that sometimes when you come off like that, well, I don't need a man and I don't need this. Anything you can do, really, I can do better. And when you have that masculine energy is sometimes a turn off to a man. That's it.
Sometimes
it's 100% turn off to me.
Just
okay, so
now not all the time.
Okay, so when you have that, we don't know that we're turning you off. A lot of women that I've coached, they just don't know.
Sure.
So I said, okay, yes, you can do everything, but can we just, and so kind of embrace more of that feminine energy. And how would we do that? And a lot of women, it's like they've had to be super independent for a long time, that they don't know how to kind of embrace that feminine, almost vulnerable space.
Yeah, they've built up a strength out of necessity, right? And because of their vulnerability or whatever. So I appreciate that point, because that's not one that I've ever really considered, to be honest. But as a man myself, I crave that vulnerability. Like, my wife doesn't like scary movies, so she won't watch one. We've never watched a scary movie together. But she's like, why? So it's funny. This happened actually recently, probably less than a year ago. She's like, why do you want me to watch a scary movie? If you know, I don't like scary movies. And I'm like, if you want me to be honest with you, I say, if you want me to be honest with you, I just want something that's going to scare you during that movie that makes you bury your head in my chest and I can wrap my arm around you. Like, and I didn't know that that's what it was. But I figured that out in that heat of that moment, is that all I really want is for her to be like, oh, and then me grab her. Like, I crave that as a man, that opportunity to protect. And so when I have a woman that's like, I don't need you, food, you don't need to prove that you're right or die to me. Like, it's just not attractive. If you're as man, if you and I have the same energy, dude, like, I'm not with it.
It's too positive. It's just like
right, but that's that masculine energy that some women, and I know some of my friends have it, and they just are not aware that that's what's oozing out. And so it's a turnoff to almost every guy.
Well, it's a turnoff to a masculine man. And that's what I think I kind of said that earlier, but you put it obviously a lot more intelligently. But the men that a masculine woman would attract is going to be a feminine man.
A beta man.
Yeah, you're not going to attract the alpha. And when the situation arises of somebody to like step up, like this fool's talking smack to me or grab my butt, and you have a weenie of a man, you're going to want that alpha, right? But you'll never attract one because you're an alpha female.
Well, because you're giving off that masculine energy, which an alpha's like, that's the opposite energy that I want to even deal with. So they're not even going to give her the opportunity to, to make herself even known.
But Thomas, just from what you were sharing, I think your love language would be like words of affirmation. So
yeah, 100% is. And physical touch.
And physical touch.
My top two, yeah.
So that means that you want, and this is where I lose a lot of women, where you have to stroke your man's ego. Because if you don't do it, someone else will.
Yeah.
Damn.
So, and a
Talk
pastor
about that right now.
explained it to me. He is the king of his castle. He's the lion. And what does the lion have? His mane. And your job is to keep that mane shiny and beautiful. And then he lost. I looked around and there was women and they were like, I'm not doing all that. Okay, well, let's address that because that's really the core issue. Remember how I always talk about getting to the core thing? Why? Why are you so against giving him what he needs? Stroke his ego, whatever you have to do. I'm in a relationship and whatever his emotional needs are, yes, I'm going to give it to him. Because when you love someone, that's what you do. You make sure that their emotional tank is full.
Yeah, 100%.
That's interesting.
The professional figured me out. She said, your words of affirmation and physical touch, 100%. That's what I am. So.
Man, this is fire, man. I'm like, this is, what's interesting? So when you were saying that about the masculine energy, like an example of how a guy, and I got this example, I forget. I think he's like the Fresh and Fit Pie. But there was like these guys, they were talking about like how guys perceive masculine energy from a female. So he gave an example of, all right, so let's say we're all in the club, right? So say we're in the club. And, so say you're a lady in the club, right? And the guy comes up to you, like the perfect guy that you would want, and just say it is that guy. So he's like 6'4", 6'5", perfect abs, body, man, got his thing going on, has his, Lambo in the front. You seen it when he came in. Everybody seen it when he came in. And all of a sudden, this guy,
fine.
And this guy's walking up to you, and you're like, dang, he's coming up. You know what I'm saying? He's like, you looked at him from the other side of the club. He looked at you. DJ playing the love song, then came on by
Usher in the club.
By Usher's, right? Jamie Foxx, everything. It all came on and everything. He walks up and he's like, man, girl, let me purse. Oh my gosh, it's so sexy. I really love it. Oh my god, look at you. Oh man, your outfit. It goes with the bag, goes with the shoes. It's amazing. Man, I love how you look. That's so amazing. I love how you look. So would you like to maybe go out for maybe a dinner or drinks or something like that? So how would you respond to a guy that's giving you that energy? You'd probably be like, what the hell is going on?
I'm married. Thank you.
But that's how guys perceive. That's how guys perceive masculine energy from a woman. When a woman gives masculine energy to a guy, they perceive that right at it's almost.
This is really good.
It's like, holy crap! Like it almost hits you in the chest.
Hold my pocket.
well, just thinking about that. So when that lady told Thomas, no, I got my own door. It was literally probably like what the hell? There was probably all types of words going off, and it's like, what the hell's going on here?
But here's the curveball. I have seen marriages where she's the alpha. She controls. She wears the pants, and he is the beta man, and he kind of goes underneath her per se. She has the power and everything, and the marriage works. So do you see how it can be misleading? Because if you are going to do that, then you have to know that you're attracting a beta man, and that's okay if that's what you want.
I think, and I don't doubt that it works. I'm just curious if it would work in a situation where you needed a man to step up, right? Like, because let's just be real. Like, you're strong, you're in shape, I don't doubt any of that stuff. And I'm not saying you're an alpha male. But if a 250-pound man decided that he wanted to do you harm, I don't care how masculine you are as a female, chances are you don't stand a chance.
Absolutely.
Right? And so if a situation like that were to arise and you have a beta male who's going to turn and run and cower, that relationship's not going to work long term. So I think it could work only because there hasn't been a situation where you needed that man. That's a man.
True. Facts are that they never had anything like that.
Yeah. And again, nothing wrong with it. Do you,
but most
whatever
women
works for
want
you, but
that alpha male.
I 100% believe that. I think most women want that, and there is a level of submissiveness or whatever the word is that has to happen. And again, I don't want a weak woman. I exactly described the exact opposite of that, with the confidence and the ability and the fact that my wife doesn't need me and she could take care of. Like, that was the most attractive part to me. What's also attractive is that she lets me be a man. When the time is right. She won't argue with me, even if I'm dead wrong in a public setting. She's not going to try to belittle me or start an argument.
You smart.
She'll say, okay. And when we get home, she lets me have her thoughts, right? But that was an agreement that we came to because I had a friend who his girlfriend would challenge him and stuff in public. And it was so uncomfortable for me. And I just I hated it. And I said, hey, you see,
there was a friend watching.
Dude. I said, when we got home, that's it. And this was years ago. And I said, do you see how that chick was acting? Consuelo, you seen how she was acting? Please don't ever do that with me in public. She's like, okay. I said, we can have a conversation outside of that, but don't do that in front of people, even if I'm wrong. And I won't do that to you.
I think that a good definition that I've generated for submissive is to be open to learning what your partner wants and doesn't want, because to some degree we groom our partners. So one of the things in my relationship that I've had to really grow still, and we're still learning, is I cut people off. I get so excited during an argument, I'll just cut him off. I have ADD. I don't know what to tell you. So I've had to really work on that. Submissive to me means open to learning new ways of doing what I've already done for 40 years. Learning new ways and what he doesn't like. Why would I do something that he doesn't like? And so submissive to me means that just being, okay, you don't like that, babe? Won't happen.
Yeah. And in a good relationship, it works both ways. I'm not saying that there's times where, maybe I'll submit to my wife or I'll admit that she was wrong, or, and it goes both ways. But if you want a strong man, if that's really what you want, you need to be not as strong. You can't match that energy. Right.
Yeah. And the thing is, you can, especially somebody that's taking care of a home as well, or has that in their bag, that's able to do that, or is doing that. She's able to do something he's probably not able to do. Maybe sometimes, man, especially if it's to taking care of the household, as far as financially, he's busy doing his thing, probably travel, doing that. But say the roles were reversed for a week or something, oh man, she's out sick, or not out sick, but say she's laid up, shoot, he'd be like, oh crap, I gotta get it. So a man will be like, wow, just to see the work that goes into maintaining a household. Yeah. He's like, oh crap, I gotta, things will probably be spinning out of whack for a couple of days before he gets his bearings. But, the home, making a home, making a house a home, a family, holding that together, man.
Only a woman can do that, bro. You give a woman a house, she'll give you a home. You give her, you know what I mean, groceries, she'll make you a meal. You give her your seed, she'll give you a child. Women have an incredible way of enhancing, multiplying things.
I know a psychiatrist that works in our program, and she's the breadwinner. He stays at home with their 2 kids. And I just asked her, does that work? How long have you been doing that? Because I had never heard of that. Because I kind of feel a little bit like it's just something unknown to me. And she said it works good for them. That because of his career, she made more money than him. And you know, this is an area where a lot of men wouldn't date a woman if she's making, if I make 150K a year, not a lot of men would be checking out for that. They could be intimidated by that. So she made 250 a year, you know, so it was his idea. He was like, you know what? I think maybe I should just quit and you just take care of us.
I think he grew up as a gamer. No, I'm kidding. No disrespect, bro. You do you. But I'm saying.
He was like, hey,
She's gonna watch this. She's gonna watch this.
Left to my own devices, right? Like, I'm lazy by nature too. You know what I mean? But man, I don't know. At a certain point, I guess if you're putting a value to what it is that you are bringing, because again, making a house a home or maintaining a home is not an easy task. Me, I've learned how to do that through watching my mom and stuff like that. Like, I've always appreciated that. So I have that ability only because, Alex, my wife's love language, the reason why I do that stuff is because my wife's love language is acts of service. So I got to know how to do some things, you know. So I wake up, I make breakfast 7 days a week for my family. 7 days a week I make breakfast every day. Some days I'll make the dinner as well. But we have this opportunity to do that, the flexibility of our schedule and stuff. But I take out the trash. I can wash clothes. I don't like folding them. So, but I'll wash them. You know what I mean? I clean the bathroom. I do all of that stuff. You know what I mean? So I can maintain a home. I know how to do that even as a man. And I don't look at that as a weak thing. But I do that because my wife's love language, so I can communicate with her, is acts of service.
She's like, oh, you took the trash out?
Well, she won't. Yeah, she might acknowledge it sometimes, but the attitude and the energy is different. So she doesn't even have to say something to, like, for me to feel the benefit of it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, the energy is better and calmer. Whereas if that stuff doesn't get done frequently, I could feel a little bit of tension in the air. Women are incredible at that too. They'll let you know with the
you really create the culture and the milieu.
Yeah.
Of the environment of the home.
He was like, hey, one day Thomas did the dishes, took the trash out, then folded the clothes, and that's how they ended up with their second boy, man. That was it.
I only make boys, bro.
Keep the socks.
Keep the socks on. No,
but that's I
love it.
That's a great example of what a man who's worthy of submission, that you can assist, you can help, that because you know her love language, that it is so important to you that she feels the love that you're pouring into her emotional tank, that you might not really like doing all these things, but you do it because you love her.
Yeah, I want the good energy. And you know what else too, as a parent, it's important for me to give that example to my kids. Like, I want my kids, I have two boys, so I feel like I have a huge responsibility to show them how to love a woman and how to be and how to show up and stuff.
If we could do a whole 1 hour on that, the power of just you modeling certain behaviors for your boys. You are changing just a generation. You're creating a legacy. You can leave all the money, but that is priceless compared to the legacy that you're going to leave, the values, the traditions. Every Thanksgiving, you guys do blank. You guys make cookies or whatever it is you do. That is priceless.
Yeah. I appreciate you saying that, because it's really probably my number one focus is at least being a good example of a husband so that my kids know what that looks like. And then obviously a good, caring, loving father. So they can feel that. Yeah.
Statistically, they will look for the safety they feel at home. They will unconsciously look for that safety and recreate that life with their future wives. They will unconsciously, just like women, a lot of the women that attract this chaos in their relationship life is because they unconsciously they recreate whatever they grew up in, and so that's why being aware is so important.
Jeez.
Boom.
Yo, that was
Brother
fire.
mine's crazy. Yeah, it is. So okay, let's pivot a little bit. 'Cause we're talking a lot about relationships, but we want to. You're obviously a successful now entrepreneur and continuing to be, right, and working. You've taken kind of this career and all of this incredible information and value that you bring to, the relationship space and stuff like that. Just understanding human nature, and you've been able to monetize it and now have this show and kind of extend your reach, so to speak, through that network and stuff. So just walk us through that process of going from an employee to now kind of independent and what you're looking to build and how you're doing that.
Well, I'm still employed. So
Okay.
let me.
Awesome.
I love what I do, just in my regular 9 to 5.
Mhm.
I feel blessed, really blessed that God has afforded me that I can still do that, because in the first years of entrepreneurship you still need to fund your webpage. I'm like, what? $50? I pay for Zoom because I do spiritual coaching. So I pay for Zoom, then I pay for my webpage, then this. So it's all these bunch of expenses.
Sure.
And so I'm still using that. But what it allows me to do is just give me the freedom to say what I really want to say. And I'll start my spiritual session with either I'll begin with prayer or we'll end with prayer. And so it really helps the people just be grounded, because I do believe you need some kind of something bigger than ourselves, and I worked for Kaiser for a while, and so you can't say God. You can get sued for that if you feel like that was a invasion of your beliefs. So I have to use more general terms such as universe, energy. And then my other Christian friend was like, well, that's not true. I was like, can we just be open-minded? To me, when I say universe, I mean God, but I can't impose it when we're in a secular place. So that's what entrepreneurship has done for me. And then I'm very, very passionate about parenting. That's my other, I don't know where I'm going to go with that yet, but I help these clients. We talk about parenting. If you think dating is hard in 2021, wait till you get to parenting, and how do you walk that fine line of, I have a lot of parents that used to say, well, my parents, whooped me or the chancla, the chancla, and I turned out okay. And I'm just like, well, in my head, I'm like, I don't know, that's subjective. But we have to use new methods of parenting. Just like you upgraded your phone, you need to upgrade your parenting skills. So it's really important that social media, these kids are getting exposed to that all the time. And how does that influence them? And where we as their parents, where do we fit in? And why home life is so important. And explaining to parents that just because you provide food, clothing, the PlayStation 5 you just bought them, and their own room, doesn't mean their emotional tank is being filled. And that lack of emotional intimacy is where we lose our kids. So that's where I'm going. I want to get into, I love parenting and teaching parenting classes. I'm really passionate about that.
Absolutely. So now taking on this, so where do you see yourself, say, in the next, I don't know, 4 or 5 years? What's your ideal kind of, business life look like? What's your dream, how you really want this to turn out for yourself. So what does it look like? Have you ever thought about that? Or
yes, best-selling author. I have a book that I'm working on, and it's about Christianity and sexuality. And I want to create programs that are going to help people sharpen their awareness. If you can just broaden your awareness and understand that whatever your issues are that you're dealing with right now probably stem from back then. So I'm a psychodynamic therapist. What that means that I believe it stems from your origins, the way you grew up, the way that you stored your memory. We have memory and we store it with smell, music, and just that's why sometimes we have an overactive fight or flight response. It's the amygdala in the brain. And why is that overactive? And that's why you respond the way you respond to this situation, but it's not really to this situation. It's really to what happened here.
Wow. Yeah.
So I
Interesting.
have a goal. I have like a list. So definitely creating some type of parenting program. Oh, I would love that. So that's something that I really want to do, and I want to put that in the classes. We are waiting till the kids are in high school to address some of the coping skills. How does a little boy who's, let's say, 8, how does he cope with anger? Let's say he punches the wall. This is the time where we would teach him, hey, I taught Sunday school, and it was 5th grade, and they were 10-year-olds. And I remember asking, Johnny, so what do we do when we get mad? Because I was talking about anger and the scripture that says, be angry, but sin not. And he's like, oh, I punch the walls. I hit this person. And I was just thinking in my head, we have to catch the kids at a younger age. So maybe you were thinking, oh, Nelly, let's catch them at 13. No, let's rewind. Let's take it back maybe to 8. That would be an optimal time. So creating a program, a parenting program, and definitely writing books.
Well, what does that look? I mean, obviously, I'm not condoning like punching another kid in the face just because you get mad, but like, is punching something wrong? Like what if he took boxing classes? Would that be bad? Because you can harness that energy and transfer it to something. You know what I mean? So, it sounds like recognizing those triggers and stuff. But I study my children. Like I study their reactions, their facial expressions, the words they use, the energy level, the pitches in their voice. But I've always been that way. I'm kind of nosy by nature, I guess, and I study people. But
yeah, you are nosy.
I know.
But that's
the most
who you
important
are.
thing is
That has to do with who you are. You saying that gives me the indication that you have a higher level of awareness of who you are as a man, as a husband, as a son, and as a colleague. That is what a lot of men lack. So we're not just, you're paying attention to their body language. Are you upset, honey? Or are you, maybe they get tearful. Did I say something to upset you? And I think you would be the type of person that if your son said, Dad, you hurt my feelings. I'm sorry, mijo, I wasn't trying to. A lot of parents want to apologize. Oh, well, go.
Yeah, no, I'll apologize, especially when I'm wrong or, if there's a feeling that's hurt. But I'll also, I've been known to smack a cheek or two. And we can have a conversation afterwards. So I'm not abusive or anything like that. But it's fascinating to me, and I'd love to see what that looks like for you, from a business standpoint and those parenting classes. Would it be like workshops? Would it be, a book and a curriculum that you can send out? Like, is it dealing specifically with just the children or or is it the parenting? Like, let's start with the parents and addressing and maybe teaching people how to be a little more vigilant and observant and study their children.
But that happens when you have someone that says, and this is really hard for me to admit, but I was a young mom. And due to my just being young, I don't know what to blame it on, because there was a part of me that I wanted to blame it on something for a long time in my life. And when I stopped blaming everyone else, and I took responsibility for my own actions, that's when I really grew. But I used to tell my son, what? He would come in the room and I'd be like, what? What do you want now? What could you possibly want right now? Don't you see that I'm in the middle of cooking dinner? Don't you see that I'm in the middle of folding laundry? I'm doing your laundry, as a matter of fact. And I wish so bad. I think if I ever got a wish, it'd be so I can rewind, because he didn't get, everyone sees this version of Nelly, but this is not the version that he got. He got the worst version of me. And so did my ex-husband. I was crazy. And with experiences and pain and crying and just really seeking God, and I got therapy myself, I really pushed through a lot of gunk that I had acquired throughout my whole childhood. But my son, and this is why I'm so passionate about that, because when I'm in a lockdown facility and a mom is looking at me like, you're just telling me what to do, but you don't know what it's like. I understand that. No person, and no disrespect to anyone, but if you don't have any kids, you can't tell me how to, you can't teach me anything. You
Sure.
have to really know when a 16-year-old is rolling their eyes in front of you that you want to just knock some teeth out, but you can't do that. You know, it's against the law. But at that time, I really wasn't, taking care of his emotional needs. I was parenting in a very structured way, like, okay, did you brush your teeth? Yes. Did you read your book? Because I was really big on, did you read your book? Yes. You did pajamas, everything. Okay, now go. Just go over there. I'll come in there and I'll pray with you when it's, ready for you to go to bed. And I've apologized to my son and said, I am sorry that you had that version of me. And he has forgiven me, but there's still remnants of that. There's still residue between him and I due to that. So when I see other mothers, I always try to, even at the store, this mom told their child to shut the beep up. And I went up to her and I was like, I just want to let you know that doesn't really work. And she got crazy. We almost had a fight in the nail shop or wherever store. And it just, people are not so, open to me teaching them. I have to have a platform such as court-ordered parenting because the kids have been taken away. So what I would love to do is actual workshops. I think that you reading a book, if I throw a book at you and I tell you how to,
most people won't read.
But I want you to get my energy and my vibe that I've done it this way. And I'm only going to give you my experience, and my truth has been with Black and Latino parents where, we're still whooping them, right? We're still telling them to shut up, where that won't give us the outcome we want in our kids. We all want our kids to be successful. I've had parents say, oh, I want them to be lawyers, doctors, but we don't have that environment. The soil is nasty. This is not good soil. Kids need good soil. You want them to grow up and produce fruit. The soil is bad. We need a whole new scratch that. And I was that parent. And I don't believe you should tell your kids at 5 to shut up. I don't, but I used to.
Yeah. I appreciate you being just candid and open about that, because that's real, man. So we need a part 3.
No, it's just, because I wanted to, learn from what I did wrong.
Man, this has been an amazing session, you guys. And I don't want to end here, but I got it here, man. This is fire, man. This is so good. So let the folks know where they can find you.
I'm on Instagram. I get a lot of my messages from there, and I always respond. So it's at @ask_Nelly, NELLY. And I always respond. I get questions all the time. And now that I have the show, I'm able to answer the questions that I get on the show. So it's fun.
Ask Nelly Show. It's called the Ask Nelly Show, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's so cool.
It's
That's
fitting.
Cool. Right? Man, this is such a great session today, man. Appreciate you guys being with us again. Thomas, you got any closing remarks, man?
No, I loved it. And I mean, I equally is appreciative of the time and the value that you bring, and I think everybody who's going to tune into this will get something from it for sure. And we just got to be open, right? I mean, any closing, let's just be open-minded to maybe not having it all figured out and being willing to accept some different perspectives, because I know I don't, and I've learned some stuff. So
yeah, I think that it really creates, I want to be honest, I never want to come out as if I have it all together, because that's just not true. I'm still learning. I might be in chapter 4 and someone else is in chapter 2. So I'm just I'm reaching out behind them to get to where I'm at. But definitely there's someone in chapter 6 that I'm going like this to, so they can pull me.
Absolutely, man. I love it. Well, shoot, without no further ado, no pressure.
No diamonds.
Let's get it.